Greetings everyone, my name is Raziel and today we're looking at Vettranio Shapura. When he was initially added to the game as an event reward, Vettranio Shapura was pretty strong. Back then, he used to gain a shield every turn if he controlled no custodians, similar to Cultist Dusk, who gained Survivor under the same circumstances. However, many players soon realized that Shapura was a lot stronger than Dusk, resulting in a monstrous season for Shapura. Of course, this couldn't last, and so Everguild quickly nerfed Shapura afterwards. And what a nerf it was. Shapura went from a warlord that gained a benefit from not controlling any custodians to only having a passive effect when he controlled custodians, giving them all a +1 to HP on Relentless. Sadly, it was very obvious that this changed Shapura was not nearly as strong as he used to be, and thus nobody gave him any attention anymore. Until now. Today is the day that we figure out whether this glorious dreadnaught still has what it takes to weather the storm of the ranked ladder. This is the list. As already mentioned, Shapuras Relentless relies on him having custodians on his board. Therefore, it should come to no one's surprise to see a deck filled to the brim with custodian troops. Sadly, custodians all come with a major flaw: Sentinel. If you have never seen or heard of this trait, Sentinel prevents you from drawing a card at the start of your turn as long as you control a unit with Sentinel, and all custodians have Sentinel on them. Therefore, to utilize Shapura's passive, you will need to sacrifice your draw at the start of the turn, which makes playing a custodian-focused deck always a little awkward, as committing to the board too early can leave you without resources in your hand should your opponent manage to remove all of your bodies. However, that doesn't stop us. Shapura himself has an ability that, when killing a unit, allows him to draw a card, which essentially makes up for Sentinel. Additionally, quite a few custodians have ways to draw cards attached to them. The Kykanatai Custodian allows us to choose and draw a card from our deck for 0 energy, and Captain Gildaros and Cleoman's Wardens both draw us a card on Battle Honor. Combining these cards, our Warlord ability, and cards like Imperium's Law, which also draws us 2 cards, we are usually able to either amass enough resources before, or keep up a steady flow after we start dropping our high-statted Sentinels. Not to mention that cards like the aforementioned Cleoman's Wardens and Captain Gildaros also benefit greatly from the added health from Shapura's passive. Another thing worth mentioning is that Sentinel doesn't care whether you have 1 custodian or 6 on your board. Therefore, once you commit to playing Sentinel troops, you may as well go as wide as possible, which Shapura has additional synergy with thanks to his Relentless. Apart from these resource-oriented custodians, we are running the usual high-value cards like both Jetbikes, Darien Helsates, or the Firepike Terminators. It is worth mentioning that our troop-to-tactic ratio is very skewed in favor of troops, as quite a few custodians possess the ability to replicate effects commonly associated with tactics, such as draw, AoE damage, and hard removal. Therefore, we can fully exploit Shapuras Relentless for maximum value. Ultimately, this is a very respectable deck. Custodian Swarm overall is a little awkward to play, but a lot of popular warlords kind of struggle with the sheer amount of stats Shapura is able to dump out very early. While he probably is not as good as Amon, I firmly believe that Shapura is definitely underestimated, and he is more than capable of holding his own on the ranked ladder, even if his playstyle takes some time to get used to. That concludes the quick breakdown of the deck. If you want to read a deeper analysis, feel free to check out the deck paste in the description. Also, feel free to join the Discord server, link is also in the description. That was it from me. Enjoy the games.
I am Alpharius.
You have my acknowledgement.
We are Legion! You're in my sights.
Now the real fight begins.
We are Legion!
A harrowing is coming. I am Alpharius.
Speak your piece.
Unfitting effort. You have my acknowledgement.
You will not speak of this matter.